We are joined now by our Senior Counsel for Global Affairs, former Secretary of State and CIA Director Mike Pompeo. He's joining us now. He's got a new piece up at ACLJ.org. We'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah, but Mike, I wanted to talk to you first because this one hits pretty close to home for me, and that is a Russian national is indicted for making false statements to the FBI. It ends up being that John Durham, the special counsel, was appointed under our friend Bill Barr, came out with a 5-count indictment of an individual named Igor Danchenko, who made false statements regarding his relationship with Russian nationals, as well as this unverified, salacious report that Christopher Steele did, and ends up lying to the FBI about it, including lying to the FBI that he was in contact with what the FBI is alleging is that he was in contact with the Clinton campaign during all of this. And, of course, the shocking thing for me, and, again, no disrespect to Bob Mueller, although absent without leave, and I hate saying that because I know Bob served in the military, but I dealt with that office for 2.5 years, and I probably met Bob Mueller 4 times. I mean, this is how absurd this was. But, Mike, now we've got a situation where the Russia collusion narrative was the Russian collusion narrative with Hillary Clinton.
So, Jay, this is an epic failure of Central American institutions. The FBI, our media, the very institutions that people depend upon to get good, accurate, factual information, knowingly told mistruths to the American people, not just once, not just twice, but for years. They extended this metaphor of President Trump as a Russian asset because of this Steele Dossier, which we now know was a Clinton machine product. It has huge political implications, but it has global implications as well around the world, right? I was trying to work on projects where we needed Russia to come alongside of us, and it was difficult to do. And even when we had adversarial interests with the Russians, it was hard to have these conversations because sitting on top of it was this Russian narrative. You were working on it yourself. You were working against the Mueller campaign. What they did for a year and a half is to impeach a president over a narrative that was fundamentally untrue. This has real ramifications. We need to make sure that we hold not just a couple of low-level crazy folks who did dumb things like we can see Danchenko did, liars. The people who accepted this information at face value or didn't do the validation work that needed to be done need to be held responsible for this.
Mike, of course, you served as the director of the Central Intelligence Agency, so you know intelligence gathering. So the thing that's always concerned me about all of this has been the fact that the FBI here utilized this dossier, which now we know not only is false, but that where the information was coming from was, coordinations with the Russian government and the number 2 guy or the PR1 person, public relations person 1 referenced in the indictment was actually the Russian government's private American public relations agency in charge of everything for the Kremlin, who was working with the Clinton campaign. I mean, this is unreal. But then they used this information on the basis of obtaining FISA warrants from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. Of course, you were the DNI. You were the CIA director. You look at that situation, you're talking about catastrophic failures. I mean, at the highest level, including the FBI director.
No, that's absolutely true. Not only Comey but McCabe. We should stay tuned. I'm sure we will continue to see more and learn more. It is also the case that these folks were so close to the Clinton campaign that we haven't seen the senior names in the Clinton campaign appear yet, including we've not yet seen Secretary Clinton's name. But make no mistake about it, this was a concerted effort. This was intentional. They were trying to use this misinformation in a way, and Russian agents in a way that were trying to impact the outcome of the American election process. This is dangerous. They were trying to cast doubt on all the central institutions here at home. We had reporters given Pulitzer prizes, for goodness sake, for writing this garbage.
I know.
This is important for the American people to stay focused on. We have to make sure there's real accountability here and that we clear up. So not only can we hold them accountable, but that we can see that our institutions will withstand an assault like this in the elections that are in front of us.
Let me ask you another one on this, because you mentioned this, Mike, as Secretary of State. You had to deal with the Russian government. You had to deal with these various leaders of these various governments and the institutions within that government. And what I think is important for the American people to understand, it made your job more complicated the longer this stayed open. And I am convinced, and this is just doubling it down now, that within 6 or 8 weeks of the investigation, they knew there was nothing there. Peter Strzok famously said, where our concern is there's no there there. Now we know the there was the there collusion with the Clinton campaign. I just don't understand that, how Bob Mueller missed it, putting that aside. But this hurt American interests overseas.
Jay, there's no doubt about that. It made our job more complicated, certainly with the Russians, right? With a country that has 1,000 nuclear warheads that had invaded Crimea in the Obama administration. This was an important counterparty for the United States of America, and this was hanging on top of it. It made it difficult for Putin and Trump to have serious conversations about these important matters because there was this central thesis that said President Trump's in collusion with these folks. It had begun just before he became president and extended on through the first couple years of the administration. But second, Jay, your point is even broader. Others in the world, too, were watching this, and they said, oh, my goodness, this is happening in the United States. I'm guessing today they're watching the way this has unfolded and said, how does this happen in America, where a Russian person colludes with the Democrat Party, and for a year and a half, the American media tells them, no, it was the other folks who were colluding with the Russians. This is crazy stuff. It is foundational. We have to pull all of the threads here. It's very important, not just to reflect history properly, but so that we get it right as we move forward.
I want to shift just for a moment. You've got a new piece up at ACLJ.org. Of course, it involves Russia and China too, but a different way. It's called "The Biden Administration's Focus on Climate Change Continues to Undermine Americans' Prosperity." You talked about the president being President Biden in Glasgow at the beginning of the week and his this overseas trip. What did you take away from this overseas trip? I saw the Chinese media there mocking some of President Biden, but I think that the American people were distracted on a lot of different things that were going on, including, are they going to vote on this infrastructure bill today, which they say they will. But your takeaway from that trip?
Even on its own terms, President Biden failed. He went there to get commitments from China on climate change. He got nothing. So even if you were to measure it against his own metric, it was an utter failure. But more broadly, this administration's central focus on climate change at the expense of all of the other security issues that matter to America will present real risk to the American people. We want to get this climate elements right. We want safe drinking water and clean air, but we cannot sacrifice American security on the religious ideological altar of climate change.
All right, folks, check that out from Secretary Pompeo. It's up at ACLJ.org. The Biden administration's focus on climate change continues to undermine American prosperity. As always, thank you, Secretary Pompeo, for joining us and being part of our team at the ACLJ as our Senior Counsel for Global Affairs.